Hello, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health. Let's talk now about blood sugar and specifically type 2 diabetes from the naturopathic holistic medical perspective, which quite frankly is the only medical perspective to use when we are attempting to understand the cause and the cure, dare I say it out loud, for chronic illnesses. Now, conventional medicine has let us down. They've let us down hard. But there are fewer areas where they've let us down more problematically than with type 2 diabetes. They have really dropped the ball here. And it's ironic because it was a medical doctor, Dr. Walter Mertz, in 1959, who discovered a direct relationship between the levels of the trace mineral chromium in the body and the body's ability to metabolize blood sugar. As it turns out, in order for your body, my body, any human body to get sugar out of the blood and into the cells where it's needed for fuel, it needs chromium, regardless of insulin. So if you have plenty of insulin but not enough chromium, the sugar isn't going to get out of the blood into the cells and you're going to have a hard time. You need chromium. Now, Dr. Mertz could turn type 2 diabetes on or off in laboratory mice by giving them or withholding from them chromium. And this was such an important discovery that about 50 years ago, Dr. Klaus Schwarz was able to have chromium registered at the National Institutes of Health as an essential nutrient. It is essential to the health of the human body. You need it, your body can't make it. However, another medical doctor, irony of ironies, Dr. Alfred Schroeder, is of the opinion, and he's correct, that the typical American diet was apparently designed to cause depletion of body stores of chromium. Now, we're not advocates of whole wheat and refined sugar, right? But the typical American, typical Canadian, typical person in Europe eats a lot of this stuff all of the time, and as it turns out, unrefined whole wheat, and before it's bleached and refined into white flour, whole wheat, is loaded with chromium. Raw sugar, before it's refined into white sugar, loaded with chromium. But when you process those two things and turn whole wheat into bleached white flour and turn raw sugar into refined white sugar, all the chromium is gone. And this is a problem because over time, because of the standard American diet, chromium levels are decreasing a lot. Dr. Schroeder compared tissue levels of chromium in teenagers to those 40 years of age in America. So from teenage to 40 years of age, he took people in America and compared their chromium levels to the same age groups in Mideast, Southeast Asia, and African communities. In the foreign communities, right, foreign to the U.S., he discovered very little change in chromium levels. But in the Americans, 25% of the people that he looked at had no detectable levels of chromium whatsoever. No detectable levels of chromium whatsoever. This was more than 30 years ago. Well, 50 years ago now, and things haven't gotten any better. Additionally, and think about this, right? So, years ago, when I was a child, diabetes, adult onset diabetes, type 2 diabetes were diseases of the elderly. Now they're showing up in kids who are 30 years old, adults who are 30 years, 40 years of age. It's not genetic. It's because of lowering levels of essential nutrients in the diet, especially chromium, and interestingly enough, another trace mineral you've probably never even heard of called vanadium. Your body needs vanadium in order to help get sugar into the cells the same way that it needs chromium. This is such an important thing. The vanadium factor is such an important thing that in 1985, a medical school at the University of Vancouver stated that vanadium will replace insulin for adult onset diabetes. This was in 1985. Now, has that happened? No, it hasn't happened. Why? Because we don't have a free medical market. The medical market is completely controlled, monopolized, dictated by the pharmaceutical industry, who is not concerned with curing a darn thing. And thank God for Novocaine. Thank God for the sterile technique. But as it turns out, you don't develop blood sugar problems because you have blood sugar. It's because you're deficient in trace minerals, especially chromium and vanadium. Now, when it comes to the metabolism of blood sugar, there are many shades of gray. Blood sugar trouble can show up in many different ways. And conventional medicine has many different names for different conditions. From our point of view, it's all the same condition, just different intensities of the condition. Metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance syndrome, syndrome X, and then eventually type 2 diabetes, right? Medical doctors like to classify illnesses, but they have no idea what causes them. They have no idea what cures them. As far as we're concerned, all of these illnesses are caused by the same thing: deficiencies in trace minerals, especially chromium and vanadium, which are getting worse and worse and worse over time. Signs and symptoms that you have a blood sugar issue might not be frank, full-blown type 2 diabetes, might not be frank, full-blown adult onset diabetes, right? Could be one of those gray areas, signs and symptoms, subjective signs and symptoms that you're starting to have trouble. Or you get sleepy after you eat a meal, and or you wake up in the middle of the night feeling like you've slept all night. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're awake and ready to go. Either of those conditions repeatedly occurring are indications that your body is having trouble metabolizing blood sugar, and you should supplement with chromium and vanadium. And by the way, 88 other essential nutrients, right? There are 90 essential nutrients that the human body needs. You need all of them every day, and if you have a blood sugar issue, extra chromium, extra vanadium. The blood test to test for this, to see, de facto, objectively, whether or not you do in fact have a blood sugar issue, is the hemoglobin A1C test. This is also referred to as glycolated hemoglobin. You need chromium. You need vanadium. By the way, interestingly enough, deficiencies in chromium have also been related to vision problems. Now, how many diabetics do you know have vision problems? It's not because they have a blood sugar issue, it's because they don't have enough chromium. Chromium also related to problems with hardening of the arteries, atherosclerosis, cholesterol mess-ups in the human body. So, catch a clue, be smart. Give your body the raw materials that it needs to operate the way that nature and God intended. Medical nutrition will save your life. I am your steadfast advocate for health, Dr. Peter Glidden. Thanks for your time. I'll see you around campus.